Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Pathaan. It's a movie starring a bunch of people that I've never seen before. So, as always, I'm going to give it good, the bad, and the furry. To start off the furry, there isn't any. Moving along. So this movie, it starts out in 2019, and it is a really fun time. So, here's how you'll know if you enjoy this movie. Did you like RRR? Yes, you'll probably enjoy this movie. Did you like the 90s James Bond where it's Pierce Brosnan? Did you like the villains in those? Did you like the level of let's go with technology that they came up with towards the later end of like the Die Another Day type of Bonds from that one? Yes. Do you like the Fast and the Furious movies? With all the hot girls and hot cars and hot things and hot dudes doing hot stuff while action things are going on. Yes, then you probably like this movie. Do you like Lucky Number 11, Smoking Aces, Shoot 'em Up, those type of movies? Then you're going to like this movie. Do you like certain Guy Ritchie films with how they did things? Did you like, I guess maybe Ong Bak? Back is a little bit applicable here. So with this movie, it was a really fun time, and I'm gonna kind of summarize the first scene for you to kind of put it in perspective of if you didn't like the first scene, then you're probably not gonna like the rest of the movie. So it basically starts off with arms dealers talking to each other, then they're like, "Oh, this guy's looking for you, and we're beating him because he's looking for you." So they go and they see this guy and he's getting beaten, and then the guy's just basically like, "Hey man, you recognize me, don't you? You recognize my voice? And now that you're getting over your disbelief, I'm gonna kick your ass." Hooah! And then he just busts out of the chair that's been holding him, that he's been letting people beat on him on, and he rah! And they're inside I don't want to say small room, but a relatively small room. And there's no reason for it, but there's wind just blowing this guy's luxurious locks and his badass, it's got blood stains, but it's semi-see-through with his white collar shirt that looks awesome on him, and he's just and the wind's blowing and the music's going and it's all epic as hell. And then he proceeds to kick everybody's ass in there and just beating the crap out of them. And then he, through beating more and more people, he makes his way down to the larger room that has a relatively basic helicopter in it. It's not all glass cockpit, but it's definitely not an assault helicopter, but it is painted black. And so he handcuffs the guy that he's trying to get information from to one of the skids on it. And then he proceeds to get in, and there's a bunch of people that are, out there shooting guns at him. And for some reason, this particular helicopter, despite looking relatively basic, is somehow bulletproof, and things are just pew, 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 ricocheting off. And so he's and it's on skids, inside. And yet they start trying to close the door, because this is, I guess, a hangar? It doesn't look very hangar-like to me, but whatever. So they're trying to close the door to keep him from escaping, because he gets in this helicopter, and is trying to take off, and he takes off, but they close that door. So then he turns the helicopter to these 4 or 5 giant columns in this now pretty big area, and he presses a button on this relatively basic helicopter, and a couple of Gatling gun type things pop out from it, and he just takes out the columns because there's another guy in the back here, on the ground, who found an RPG and is getting ready to take him out. So he finishes shooting all that stuff, and then he flies through just as it's finishing crumbling. He flies through, and then the RPG comes, and he it just barely misses him, but hits the wall in front of him, and he takes this relatively basic helicopter straight up and shoots out the glass ceiling from this column that he must be in, and just and makes it out as the explosion follows him out, along with his prisoner that is dangling because he's been handcuffed to the skid. So I enjoyed the hell out of that scene. Did it make a whole lot of sense? Maybe not. Why would this helicopter on skids be inside this building? Why would he not gun through the door and instead go through columns? And how did this helicopter go straight up at a 90-degree angle? Who cares? It was a fun action time, and I don't even care that there shouldn't have been any wind in there, because that entrance of just like wind was just awesome. I love that. And so that's kind of how a lot of the rest of the movie goes, is that they kind of push things to 11, but that's the realm that they're in, where like these guys are just a little bit more powerful than your average people, even though they're not at all referenced and not at all supposed to be superheroes, right? They're just badass dudes doing badass things. And so yeah, it was definitely a fun time, and they had the good amount of villains who had decent motivation. Like I said, the 90s James Bond level of motivation for what they were doing. And I will say that as I was watching, I was like, this must be part of some type of shared universe. And when I read the trivia, it sounds like this is a bit of a shared universe. And so imagine, if you will, like if you've never seen any of these before this one, which I haven't, how I would describe it is, imagine if you were watching Captain America Civil War, where you're doing the airport scene, and then Iron Man calls like, hey, Spider-Man, come help out. And then Spider-Man comes and helps out in the airport sequence, and then leaves. Without any of the other story establishing things that actually happened in that movie to explain why Spider-Man was there. That is what happened in one of the scenes here, where I was like, where did that badass guy come from? And why is he doing the badass thing? I love it. Like, that fight scene, whoo, man, that fight scene was awesome. I gotta tell you, I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it kind of reminded me of John Wick in the level of long take, but maybe not quite, maybe more like Atomic Blonde, because it looked awesome. But there was just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because the rest of the fight scenes were a little bit more quicker cuts, like you're used to with some action movies. But I don't know how they achieved that long take look. But I know that they did something to it, because it looked a little off, and I don't know what it was. But I like that I don't know what it was, and that I still really enjoyed the hell out of that fight scene that they were in. But anyhow, so random guy comes in, helps out the fight scene or whatever, and then leaves, and I'm like, That guy clearly is from something that other people who've seen this universe know and are like, yeah, that guy. I don't know that guy, but I still enjoyed that. Just like if you don't know anything about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you jump into Civil War for some reason, you would be like, I know that Spider-Man person's important somehow. I don't know why, but it's badass and awesome. Again, if you didn't have the establishing or post things to explain why Spider-Man was there. So that's what I'm going to say for that. The other thing is that the music in this was awesome. I really, really love the music in this. It had the right amount of beats, it had the presence, and it had the newness to it. I really liked it. What I will say is I really enjoyed it overall, and there was a couple of really good highlights. But one thing that you should be aware of is, if you remember in the DC movies, where every time Wonder Woman comes on screen, that da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like the singing goes on, like every time she gets on screen, they're like da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like that one set of singing note thingies that comes on every time she gets on screen. And especially after one of the movies, you're like, we get it, she just got on screen. They do that here for the villain. Like every time the villain guy comes on screen, it plays his music. And don't get me wrong, I like his intro music. It's excellent. But I do feel like they overplayed it a couple too many times, much like how they overplayed it a couple too many times in the DC movies. But still enjoyed those, still enjoyed this. And then the other thing is, so the main female character in this, Romani, is just so badass. Just so bad. I would love to see like a crossover movie. I know it'll never happen, but I would love to see a crossover movie between her character in this and Ana de Armas' character in the James Bond Skyfall. Like, having those two come in, like, be in their own movie would just be so amazing. If nothing else, I would still love to see those two in a movie together, even if it's not the shared universe. But can you imagine the shared universe of James Bond with Pathaan, with those two in it? Oh, it'd be so good. But anywho, yeah, so she's a badass, and holy hell is she hot. Like, oh my, whoo, speaking of hot, Pathaan's workout routine. I need to know Pathan's workout routine because, my God, just this. I mean, this guy's workout routine is just, oh, that is just, that is impressive, sir. My non-existent hat off to you for that workout routine. My goodness. So yeah, this is definitely a fun movie, and one of the things that I thought they did well was, in my again, I don't have a whole lot of experience with Bollywood or movies coming out of India rather than Hollywood. Don't have a whole lot of experience with them, but it seems like they all pretty much have a music video-esque scene in them, and then also in like the end credits. The end credits one was fine in this, like I enjoyed it, but I really liked the introduction music video thing that they did for her, because if you remember the Fast and Furious movies, I would say especially the one where they pull up in front of, I want to say it's like the Burj Khalifa or the one of the really big, like tall buildings in Dubai or UAE, one in, just in that area. They pull up and they all like get out of individually. They're like super awesome, amazing cars. The camera's all angled up and the sun's there. And they all get out and they all look amazing. And that music comes on and like, they do that badass walk thing. I feel like they did that version of this for the introduction of her. And they did it so awesome because I would have loved to see more of that event, of them just walking up and getting out of the cars and looking all amazing in the Fast and Furious movies. But they had other things to do, so they're like, yeah, and we're moving on. With this one, they're like, yeah, and check out this entire sequence of them dancing. And they still integrated a couple story bits in it. So I liked it, and I thought that it worked well for this movie. And maybe it's because I also just am expecting this type of thing in this movie, which is why I enjoyed it, rather than the Aladdin one, where just it seemed to have come out of nowhere. And again, it was all like in a dream sequence music video, whereas this, it had like music video type things, but it was more like, you know what it was? It was more of a musical type event where she's singing and she's got her like background dancers and everything else, but there's still story bits happening. Whereas in the Aladdin one, it was just like a music video that had no context and no effect in the story. So that was awesome. I definitely thought that was good. And just in general, so the action was great in this, and was the CGI perfect throughout? No, but I thought that it was the same level of CGI, so it didn't really bug me. There wasn't like suddenly those people look rubbery. Like, it didn't ever have the rubbery feeling. It just had a bit more of the, like, I don't know if that would work physics-wise. But I was fine with it. So, like, there was an instance where it's like, okay, well, that guy's dragging a thing down that you could just have explained it, where he's, like, motioning somebody over to move the thing, and then that would have helped. But they just went with, he's like, I'm a big, strong guy. And you know what? I was there for it. It was fun. And that's what I think this movie is that it's a fun time with badass good guys doing badass things and badass bad guys doing badass things. And, just, it was definitely an action ride throughout, with storylines that kept me interested, with pacing that was good. It is like 2.5 hour movie, and I thought that they used that 2.5 hours appropriately. And yeah, I liked it. I liked the storyline, the action, the music, how they did the fight scenes and everything else. Like, it was all a very well done, very well packaged. I still think I liked RRR more, but I think that there was a bit more heart in that movie than in this one. And then I kind of liked the dance singing sequence in that a little bit more in terms of integration into the story. But this one, I definitely like the one with her in it, just visually speaking a bit more, you know what I'm saying? But this was definitely a fun time. I definitely recommend that if you have a chance, go check it out. It's in theaters in the US right now, and I think you'll have a good time if you liked any of the things and other movies that I've referenced in regards to this movie. But that's really all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.